Hey, what is going on? It is Crypto Bobby here, and today I want to talk about two pretty big things that have gone on. And number one, Bitcoin is pushing or was pushing into its all-time highs and has since gained a little bit of resistance, but is still hovering in a pretty damn impressive place. And then as well, the altcoin market, which yesterday just got absolutely hammered almost across the board. The altcoin market has made a little bit of a recovery, pretty nice recovery. So when everybody says buy the dips, yesterday turned out to be a little bit of a dip to buy into. So we'll have to discuss that in more detail as well. As always, if you are new to the channel, my name is Rob from Crypto Bobby. I do daily recorded videos on the subject of cryptocurrency, as well as YouTube live crypto happy hours where I hop into YouTube live, have some beers with you guys, talk a little bit about what's happening in the day-to-day of the crypto market and my long-term strategies as well. So let's hop into it. Today in the marketplace, here are the Bitcoin charts in Coinigy right now, just the 1 hour charts. And if we zoom in a little bit, Bitcoin had a real nice run, at least from last night too. I mean, down from the 4600 range all the way up to this afternoon, at least for me on the East Coast. This afternoon, I was sitting back watching these charts and just like, holy hell, is it going to happen? Is it going to happen? And Bitcoin almost broke through its all-time highs. You can see this one candle here where it started almost at $4,900. Started a little bit below that, went all the way up to about $4,920. It met some resistance there and immediately got slammed down to the mid 4,800s or so, and it's kind of sitting back down here now. So the all-time high, I don't remember. I think it depends on the exchange. I don't remember the specific all-time high for Bitcoin, but it's somewhere in the 49.50 range, give or take. Give or take some dollars there. But Bitcoin right now is pretty much right up within about $100 of its all-time high and within $150 or so of breaking $5,000, which I think seems to be a pretty big psychological barrier, a pretty big mental barrier, whatever you want to call it. But it's getting pretty damn close to making some moves there. So I've been looking at these charts and trying to get a feel for what's happening in the marketplace. And yesterday was the big story of the day. Was money was flowing from the altcoins into Bitcoin. Now today, if we look at CoinMarketCap, a lot of those altcoins have had a nice recovery. Whether it's been Bitcoin Cash having a 5% recovery. Neo, not too much of a recovery there, but a little bit. It's at least green for the day. Omise Go, OMG, you're welcome for selling a little bit of the bottom. I took some profits on that, and I'll pull up my Twitter here. But so I wrote last night on Twitter that I was taking a little bit of profits on OMG, on Civic, and on Link. And you can see here, I said, I'm still holding a good amount of all three of these cryptos, but I wanted to take, I was pretty overexposed to OMG, to Civic, and to Chainlink, and I had made the most significant profits. I bought OMG at $1.50, and I sold a little bit. Let's say it was at $7.50. It's now up to $8.30. So I basically sold yesterday's bottom. So again, if you hold OMG, you're welcome, because I tend to do that. I tend to sell the bottom. And Civic as well. Civic, I got in at the ICO. It's still up about 2-3x of the ICO. So I wanted to take a little bit of profits there. And again, I still hold just a tiny bit that I took off the top to move into Bitcoin in anticipation of potentially more of an established run basically on Bitcoin. As of now, both OMG up 12% on the day, and if I scroll down here to Civic, where's my good friends at Civic? Up 20% of the day. Again, you're welcome for selling the bottom of, I think I sold Civic at about 29 cents. So it's at 33 cents now. Not the smartest move for your boy Rob, but that's life. And that's, everybody wants, everybody on Twitter and everybody on YouTube wants to talk about how awesome of a trader they are and how awesome of decisions they make. I just felt a little bit overexposed to some of these altcoins and to some of the movements that was going on with them. And Turns out right now, at least in the past 24 hours, not the best move. However, could it play out differently in the long term? Yeah, maybe. But we'll have to go to see. Now, as I'm looking at, I think one of the big lessons, at least for me personally, in the past 24 hours, and if you go back to yesterday's video, if you watched yesterday, and if you've been watching some of this information now, yesterday was a day where the majority of the market was pretty much the majority of the market was basically red for altcoins. And a lot of people are freaking out, and you basically had two sides of the spectrum. You had people freaking out and selling their faces off and trying to, liquidate everything and getting the hell out of the market. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you had people saying buy, buy, buy. For me personally, what I was thinking is I didn't have a lot of, I didn't really have a ton of fiat. I didn't really have any extra fiat to deploy because when people say buy the dip, I already bought the dip. So I was already overextended. So I really couldn't do too much in terms of buying extra altcoins. That said, I felt like I had previously bought a pretty substantial dip with altcoins. So I moved some of my profits because, like I said, I don't think it's ever a bad thing to take profits, and people probably give me shit in the comments. Oh, you sold, whatever. It is what it is. That's life. Sometimes you buy, sometimes you sell. I'm never going to fault anybody for doing anything. It's just kind of funny that some people will give you a little bit of shit about it. So, but I mean, such is life there. The big lesson from yesterday for me is that while yes, things can go down over specifically altcoins in yesterday's case, well, yes, certain things can go down. If there really isn't fundamentally a big reason why you think that they are going down, that might be a good time and a good indicator to buy in and to, dollar cost average your way in. Now, I know a lot of people reached out to me on Twitter and in the comments as well and, said, this is an opportunity to really buy the dip and to get in at a lower price point than you think is going to be a future value. And that turned out to be a good move. So I think that is an excellent, excellent choice. For me personally, yesterday's strategy right now has basically been a break even. It hasn't been that much of, I've definitely lost out on a little bit of paper profits with taking a little bit of Civic and taking a little bit of OMG off the table. And those two just happen to be the cryptos that went up 12% and 20% respectively. So that wasn't the greatest move, but I think that's also something that you can probably learn from a little bit, as well as maybe my movement was a little bit later than it should have been. I was probably a little bit more reactionary than necessary yesterday. I mean, this was after pretty much a full day of altcoins getting blasted. And like I said, I didn't necessarily buy the absolute low, and this is also coming off of, I was at 700% profit with OMG probably, and about 200-300% profit with Civic. So it's not like I was selling at a loss here, but at the same point in time, selling when it's selling on a down day isn't necessarily the best thing that you should do. And for me, it was more of a diversification play than it was of being scared. And I thought maybe I could ride a little bit more of the Bitcoin wave. And quite frankly, I wasn't super exposed to Bitcoin yet. I had a lot more of my money in altcoins. Now it's a little bit more back in Bitcoin and back in Ethereum. But that was my play and a little bit of my mistake. And I know a lot of you guys made some good moves as far as, I'm glad a lot of you guys made some good moves as far as buying when things were lower, because that's ultimately every time a movement happens, you don't necessarily have to make a move every time the markets move up or down. That's absolutely not a necessity, and I would advise against that. But you should try to learn every time the markets go up or the markets go down, and try to kind of analyze what you're feeling, what you're thinking, and how that affects your investments. So that's kind of my thought process going further here. Is I'm marking this down as a day in which, and also kind of why Twitter is nice in a lot of cases too, is that this is a little bit of a day where I can go back and I can look at this and I can look at the price action specifically and see, hey, this probably wasn't the best movement. It was good for diversification and something that just helps me sleep a little bit easier at night, quite frankly. But at the same point in time, right now, price action, I would have been better keeping my money in OMG, Civic, and Link, and I probably would have either been able to buy more Bitcoin. If I did this 24 hours later, I would have been This would have been a 10% difference probably just with the way the markets moved. So, and 10% difference in my favor. So rather than, doing what I did yesterday, you can learn from that now, and you can take a little bit of a peek and see, hey, I sold. I'll say I sold, but I wanted to diversify. And after I diversified, we got a 12% gainer on OMG, and we have a 20% gainer from the bottom on Civic. So, both not the best moves from your man Rob, but it's a learning experience for me. I think it's a learning experience for you. Always, and one thing too I'll preference as well is that while we always say buy the dips, you always have to remember that there's kind of really three pretty blatant dumb scenarios, but the dip turns out to not just be a dip. Scenario one is the dip turns out not just to be a dip, but a continued movement down. When that happens, you buy the dip, but it continues to dip lower, and you've seen that with certain cryptos like Coin and like a lot of other things where we got Coin that was once the top 20, top 15 cryptocurrency, and every time this is dropped off a planet, you're like, oh wow, I'm buying the dip. Nope, it's just going down and down and down. Conversely, you could have what happens yesterday, and it goes down and then it bounces back up 5, 10, 20%. Fantastic news if you bought that. Or it just trades sideways and kind of is what it is, whether you buy or you sell. It doesn't really make that much of a damn difference. So those are the three scenarios that I think, you want to be aware of when something does make that big movement downwards, is trying to understand what the possible outcomes are, and that while, yes, if you're buying into it, if you're buying into the dip, you're going to dollar cost average your way in a little bit lower, but depending upon the momentum, that can bounce back right up, or you can go a lot lower. So something to keep in mind there. Now, what am I looking at tonight and over the rest of the days? I'm really keeping an eye as of yesterday, from the past couple of days, but I'm keeping an eye on Bitcoin and how the altcoins are doing, and then Ethereum as well. So Bitcoin is really the number one thing I'm keeping an eye on. Right now, it's making a little bit of a movement down. It's not massive, but this last hour-long candle, we're seeing some selling going on right now, and I want to see if Bitcoin can break through its all-time highs and get above $5,000. If that happens, I think there's going to be a wave of good additional press and a lot of exciting things happening. You're going to see your Business Insider articles, your Bloomberg articles, your CNBC articles. Bitcoin breaks $5,000. Bitcoin hits an all-time high, blah, 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 blah. That's going to happen, and that might bring maybe a little bit of new money into the industry, maybe a little bit of fresh money in. But outside of that, I'm looking at whether or not Bitcoin breaks through that $5,000 mark, because if it comes up against resistance and it hits against that a few different times, we might be looking at a pretty big sell-off as traders start to get nervous about the lack of momentum going over the all-time highs and going over $5,000. And then in addition to that, with what's happening with Bitcoin, I'm looking at where does that money from Bitcoin flow from? Is that coming fresh money from fiat currency, or is that money from altcoins like it was yesterday? A lot of people just moving money in from altcoins into Bitcoin. Where is that money coming from, and how is that going to affect the price action? And if Bitcoin falls down, if Bitcoin cannot get through the all-time highs, if it can't really sustain above that $5,000 range, are we going to see a sell-off into the altcoins, or are we going to see a sell-off into fiat, and then the entire marketplace takes a tumble? So that'll be interesting to watch too. Kind of the two different things that I'm watching now. Would love to hear your thought process as far as the past 24, 48 hours. Did you make any type of plays yesterday? Was there anything specific that you did? Did you make any smart moves? Did you make any dumb moves like I did? Or did you just kind of sit tight and let the market do its thing, which is typically what I do, but sometimes you get a little bit antsy and you just don't like where you're feeling and you don't like exactly what's going on. So appreciate your thoughts and your comments below. Would love to hear what you're feeling from a marketplace perspective and the overall sentiment that you have. If you are new to the channel, again, my name is Rob from Crypto Bobby. I do daily recorded videos on the subject of cryptocurrency. And make sure to hit that subscribe button as we go forward, and I continue to try to pump out as much content here as possible for you guys and as high quality content as possible. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I hope you have a good one. Peace.